This is better than oyster sauce. It's king oyster sauce. You ready? So, we're making king oyster mushroom sauce today. An extremely umami rich, equally tasty, if not tastier, vegan substitute for the traditional oyster sauce. And the key ingredient, of course, is dried king oyster mushrooms. And we start by drying them. Now, given the sheer size of these mushrooms, of course, we can slice them thin, shred them, however you like, just to speed things up. One day, when we have the time, we'll do them whole and do a few fun recipes out of them. So why do we dry mushrooms? Well, dry mushrooms offer an extremely different flavor profile than fresh ones, mostly because of the concentrated umami. Because when they dehydrate, while the water escape and they shrink in size, the umami compounds stays. So what you end up with is a much higher umami to size ratio. And of course, the flavor of the mushroom themselves would also concentrate. And dry mushrooms, as we've demonstrated in many of our recipes, make an incredible vegan dashi that you could use in many recipes, which is exactly what we're gonna do. Just like how we cooked our oysters in their own brine in our oyster sauce recipe, we are going to cook them later on in the soaking liquid to really concentrate all the umami. It looks like we're doing a lot, but trust me, once they shrink, we might not have enough. We'll keep one whole, just for fun. Of course, it'll take much longer. Now, we grab our trays with wire racks on top. You try to form one even layer, but they would shrink by quite a lot, so don't worry too much. And of course, you can dry them however you like. If you live in a jurisdiction where you could see the sun, leave them outside. If you have a dryer, great. We unfortunately will have to use the lowest setting of the oven. We'll give this one its own tray later. So now, into the oven they go. Ideally overnight, lowest setting with fan. And tomorrow, king oyster sauce. I'll see you then. After 14 hours and 58 minutes in the lowest settings of my oven, 4 trays have become one extremely umami-rich plate, and they really have shrunk in size. We've also learned that there's a reason why shops do not sell whole king oyster mushrooms, because after almost 2 days of drying, this is still moist on the inside and has developed a bit of an unpleasant, slimy outside. So this has to go to the bin. Now, king oyster sauce. We need to first rehydrate the dehydrated mushrooms. It sounds like a lot of unnecessary work, but this process has broken down the cell structures of the mushrooms permanently. So rehydrated mushrooms do not taste anything like fresh mushrooms, and the glutamate has really concentrated. Add some water. If you're using store-bought mushrooms for this recipe, I would rinse them beforehand. And just to further enhance the umami content, optional, we have some kombu. Now, if you want to eat the mushrooms after making the sauce, I would rehydrate it slowly until they're softened, and then bring in the heat to cook the mushrooms and reduce the sauce. If you're only solving for the sauce like we are today, you can bring in some heat immediately. You want the combination of the soaking and cooking period to be about 1 hour in total. Once you've reached a bare simmer, we remove the kombu as it has imparted most of the umami into this liquid, and prolonged cooking of kombu at high temperature would make our liquid unnecessarily slimy. So now we lower the heat and maintain a bare simmer for about an hour to really extract all the umami goodness from the king oysters. So after an hour, the mushrooms have fully softened and imparted all their flavors, all their umami into this dark liquid that already looks like store-bought oyster sauce. We remove the mushrooms and thank them for their service. You can chop them up and they would be a wonderful addition to your mapo tofu. Just look at this color, it's incredible. Now, before the final reduction, 2 optional ingredients. 1, mirin. This is a Japanese sweet wine, and we're going to use this both as our thickener and our sugar content. And we'll cook this down into a proper syrup If you don't have access to mirin, you can add some honey, add some caramel, or simply add some sugar. And towards the end, we'll gauge the consistency to decide whether we need to add some cornstarch to further thicken the sauce. And stir it occasionally just to prevent the bottom from catching and burning before the rest could turn into a syrup. Now, once it's starting to coat the bottom of your pot, we add the soy sauce now to cook. Instead of adding the soy sauce to the liquid, we're now allowing the amino acid from the soy protein to react with the sugar content of the mirin. And given sugar has a much higher boiling point, we're in essence causing the Maillard reaction in the pot, bringing a lot more deeper meaty flavors to our sauce. And there's a reason why cooked soy sauce sometimes tastes quite different to raw soy sauce. Brilliant. Now, our liquid umami goes back in. And now we let this reduce. Unlike the store-bought commercial oyster sauce, our color mainly comes from the ingredients themselves, not from food coloring. So once the liquid has been reduced down to about 25%, we start to taste and decide how much more we want to reduce this. Because at this point, you're solving for flavors, not texture. Oh, it's incredible. The rich savoriness of this sauce is mouth-coating and it lingers, and it's incredible. So the flavors has been nailed down. Now we solve for the texture. Yes, the mirin have been great help, but now we enlist the help of a bit of cornstarch. We work to remove all the lumps. I mean, the sauce itself is as good as it gets, but this is to get it closer to the consistency of a conventional oyster sauce. By the way, another advantage of the King oyster sauce is, unlike oysters, they are not naturally salty. So we can make an extremely umami concentrated sauce that is not overly salty. And I don't want to add salt or more soy sauce. I want it to stay this way so that we have way more control and we can add way more of this concentrated goodness to whatever that we're cooking and adjust the salt level separately. One last mix, and you add this gradually. So now this has a bit of viscosity. Oh yes, it's incredible. It's starting to lightly coat the back of my spoon. And for me, that's the consistency I want from my oyster sauce. And look at this beautiful shine and beautiful color. Now, once it's cools down, store it in the jar and you have liquid umami in your fridge for up to 2 weeks. This is King oyster sauce. I really hope you enjoy.